Hey y'all, my name's Kathy. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the young adult librarian at Library 21C, and today I will show you how to make 2 soft pretzels or a couple dozen pretzel nuggets. For this recipe, you'll need half a teaspoon of active dry yeast, 2 tablespoons plus 3/4 of a teaspoon of sugar, which will be split between 2 parts of the recipe, 1 cup of flour plus a little extra for kneading the dough, half a teaspoon of salt, 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, which you will melt and that will also be split between 2 parts of the recipe, 1 large egg yolk, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon if you're making cinnamon sugar pretzels, or some kosher salt or pretzel salt if you're making salty pretzels, and 2/3 of a cup of baking soda. The first thing you'll do after washing your hands is take your yeast and 3/4 of a teaspoon of granulated sugar and combine it in a medium bowl, and then add in 1/3 of a cup plus a tablespoon of warm water, which you want to be about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and stir that together. And then you'll let that sit for 5 minutes, and this is a test to make sure that your yeast is alive. So in 5 minutes, this mixture should be foamy. If it's not, your yeast has died and you'll need to get new yeast. It's been about 5 minutes and I have foam on the top of my yeast mixture here. So now we'll add in the flour, the regular salt, and 1 tablespoon of the melted butter. And we'll just stir that all together. Okay, we've got our pretzel dough, and now it's time to knead it. Alright, I've dumped some flour out on my counter here to knead the dough. Now you should always wash your hands before cooking or baking anything. And if you haven't washed your hands yet, now would be an excellent time to do so, since you're going to be directly touching the pretzel dough. So I'll take my dough out here, plump it on my counter, and knead it for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to push it away from me, then fold it back towards me, push it away and fold it back. And you can sprinkle some extra flour on top of the dough as you need to, especially at the beginning when it's a little stickier. I've kneaded my dough for about 10 minutes here. It should be smooth when you're finished with it. And one good test is if you poke the dough, the indentation should fill back in relatively quickly. It shouldn't stay a deep indentation in the dough. And you can do what's called the Windowpane Test. So you can take a chunk of your dough and carefully stretch it out. And you should be able to get it relatively thin. The idea is that it's so thin that you could hold it up to a light source and see the light through it, which I can here. I don't think it's visible on the camera. If you start to do the Windowpane test and your dough tears, that means that you haven't kneaded it enough yet. What you're doing when you're kneading it is strengthening the gluten in the dough there. And if you haven't kneaded it enough, the gluten is not developed enough, the dough is not strong enough, and it'll tear when you try to do that test. But now that I have my dough all in a ball here, I'll just take a bowl and grease it. Then I'll just pop my pretzel dough in the bowl. And I'll put some plastic wrap just loosely over the top of the bowl, and it'll sit for an hour, hour and a half until it's doubled in size. It's been about an hour and a half and my dough has doubled in size. So now we prepare for getting them into the oven. Before we'll separate out our dough into pieces and shape it, there's a little bit of prep work to do. So I set my oven to 450 degrees. I got out a baking sheet and put some parchment paper on it. I have a large pot, and in there I have 10 cups of water and all of that baking soda, and that's at a boil. I also have a big spoon with holes in it. We'll be putting our pretzels into the baking soda bath and then fishing them out and putting them on the baking sheet. I have my egg yolk beaten in a bowl and a brush to brush the egg yolk. All right, now we can get to shaping. So we'll go ahead and break our dough up into 4 roughly equal pieces. And then we'll take each of these pieces and roll it out. And you're aiming for 12-inch ropes here. Now we have all 4 of our ropes. So you have a choice. You can either make 2 traditional pretzel shapes out of this, or a bunch of little pretzel nuggets. So if you want to make the pretzel shapes, you'll take 2 of your 12-inch ropes and pinch them together at the end so that you have 1 roughly 24-inch rope. And you want to make a U shape and then bring the ends down here, twist them in the middle to make that traditional pretzel shape. And if you're doing this, you really want to make sure that you're pinching the ends down and pinching that twist in the middle, because if you don't really get them secured together, when you put it into the baking soda bath, it can just all unravel into a rope again. So we'll keep that one as a pretzel shape, and then I'll cut this one up into little bits. I'll go for about 1 inch each on those. Okay, so we've got 18 little pretzel nuggets here and our 1 regular pretzel. So now it's time to get them ready for the oven. Okay, as you can see, we have our pot of water and baking soda boiling here. So I'm just going to take my spatula spoon situation and grab our pretzel. I'm just going to use the spoon to sort of gently lower it into the bath here. This is the test to see whether I got it adhered well enough. There we go. And that gets to hang out in the bath for just about 30 seconds. So this baking soda bath is really what makes a pretzel a pretzel. So when you're baking anything, there's what's called a Maillard reaction, which is a chemical reaction that changes the flavors of things. Basically anything that you bake or cook that turns brown while you do it, that's because of the Maillard reaction. It's been 30 seconds, so I'll lift out our pretzel here and set it down on the sheet. And then grab some of the nuggets. Alright, another 30 seconds for those guys. So the Maillard reaction, causes things to brown, causes a change in flavor. And this baking soda bath here is changing the chemistry of the pretzel dough, which means that the reaction will proceed differently than it would if you were just put the pretzel dough straight into the oven without giving it this bath first. Okay, I'll turn off my burner. Move our pot out of the way. Scooch our sheet a little closer. So now we can take this beaten egg yolk with our brush and just brush the tops of all of our pretzels. We've got them all brushed with the egg wash, so now we can pop these into the oven for 10 to 12 minutes until they're nice and golden brown on top. It's been 10 minutes. My pretzels are nice and golden brown, so I've got them out of the oven. And now it is time to finish them off. So I have my plate with my 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I have my kosher salt for the salty pretzels. They also make pretzel salt, but I already have a coarse kosher salt in the house, so that's what I'm going to use. And then cinnamon sugar, so it's the remaining 2 tablespoons of sugar and the 2 teaspoons of cinnamon mixed together there. So I'll start with the biggest pretzel. And I will dunk it in our butter. Try to get the butter all over. Then plonk it on the plate. Gonna get a paper towel. And then I'll sprinkle my cinnamon sugar over the top here. And the melted butter just allows your cinnamon sugar or your salt to adhere to the pretzel. So now we will carry on with the rest of our nuggets here. We like cinnamon sugar pretzels more than salty pretzels in our house. So I've just salted 5 or so over here, but obviously cinnamon sugar or salt the pretzels to your preference. Put other things on there too. I know some pretzel shops have like a pizza pretzel with pepperoni on top. I'm sure you could dig into your spice cabinets and find a bunch of other interesting things that you could try putting on top of a pretzel. But there we have it. I'll try to get some of the cinnamon sugar on the bottom and the edges of our big pretzel as well. Okay, so here's we went with 1 regular pretzel, and then I think it wound up being 16 little pretzel nuggets. But you could make 2 big pretzels, you could make 30-ish pretzel nuggets instead, depending on what you like. Top them however you like. So this recipe is from Christina Lane Her website is dessertfor2.com, and it has a bunch of smaller recipes like this one. So if you're looking for, a dozen cookies instead of 5 dozen, that's a great resource. She has a number of cookbooks, Sweet and Simple, Comfort and Joy, Dinner Just for Two, and we have them at the library either in a physical cookbook or in an ebook, so you can check those out from us as well to check out more smaller batch recipes like this one.